Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Moose and today we're going to be talking about how Yu-Gi-Oh! Has fundamentally changed in the last 2 years and how deck building specifically has changed in that time. So let's get into it and make sure to like, comment and subscribe for more content like this. Now let's get into the video on deck building and why it's so different than it was a few years ago. Now if you look at the top deck lists from the YCSs, from regionals, from all of these things, you'll notice a trend, right? You'll notice that there's actually variety in a lot of the top decks and in the top 8, top cuts, everything. There's a lot of variety in the cores that are being played. So there's Prank Kids, there's Eldritch, there's Despia, there's Dragon Link, there's Dogmatica, there's everything, right? There are a lot of different decks being played. But what's interesting in how Yu-Gi-Oh! Shifted in the last 2 years, especially from 2020, is that what you're finding more and more is that these decks are sharing common engines. Not necessarily their cores, but the common engines that make them strong. So Prank Kids, you could be playing Prank Kids DPE or Adventurer Prank Kids DPE. So you'll see these engines, like the Adventurer engine, the Brave engine, the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer Verte engine, the Dragoon engine, all of these things, even DPE with Scythe, being thrown into a lot of decks, making them end on very similar, stronger boards than they would have beforehand. And one of the examples of sets that actually contributed to this change quite a lot is Dual Overload, right? Dual Overload introduced at least 2 of these engines. One being Halkifibrax, so the Halk engine, which everyone should know by now, and Verte, which allowed people to just splash fusions everywhere. Then later on in 2020, we got Dragoon, so Verte and Dragoon became a thing. Earlier in 2020, we saw Halkifibrax being splashed everywhere with Master Rule 5, and, you know, the Auroradon combo, Link Cross, all of that, eventually ending up with Link Cross and a bunch of tuners getting banned for that engine. Now we have Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer with Artifact Scythe or without Artifact Scythe in the last month or so, and that engine is being splashed just about everywhere. Then you have the Adventure engine now, that is just about being splashed in all the top decks. It's so good. It allows you to avoid things like Nibiru by getting out negates. All that kind of stuff is available to you. So what I'm saying is nowadays you've got these decks that are composed of multiple engines. I mean, Based is kind of the epitome of that, right? It's just a bunch of good engines splashed together to make the best end board possible and give you variety in your plays. And honestly, the only really pure deck you'll see running around these days is Dragon Link. And you can't really call Dragon Link a pure deck because it's just the best monsters of that entire type. So it's got sort of a Rocket engine, a Chaos engine, all of that, but it's grouped together in Dragon Link because they're all dragon cards, right? So nowadays, I'm saying that there are a lot more powerful engines running around, which are a lot more generic than they used to be. And it's kind of a pick your poison right now, before the ban list comes out, and we don't know when that's coming out. It hopefully will be soon, copium. But with all these powerful engines running around, you have decks playing very differently than they could have. You have branded Eldritch, you have DPE Sky Striker, you have Adventurer Prank Kids, you know, Adventurer branded, all of these things being played out very differently than they would initially. Things like Dragoon in Subterrors last year, right? Are examples of how this sort of shift towards just playing good engines to lift the ceiling of a deck or lift the consistency of a deck has become more ubiquitous. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I kind of enjoy this format. I'm really enjoying it right now. But to try and decide what are the best decks, you're kind of looking at which decks fit best with which engines, and which decks have their ceilings boosted the most, rather than which archetypes are necessarily the best nowadays. It's more which archetype fits with the best engines. And for me, that's really interesting. But I know a lot of people are mad about it, and a lot of people want to see those engines banned, because they think it's too generic and things like that. So I guess it really depends on your point of view. Me, myself, I'm pretty much enjoying it. But right now, one of the staples of deck building is, can you fit in hand traps and can you fit in additional engines? And if you can't fit in additional engines, can your deck ceiling actually measure up to what the other decks are doing? If it can't, sorry, you're really not going to top. We're in a really weird spot where those engines are very, very expensive, particularly the Adventurer and DPE engines. But honestly, I think with reprints it could be more accessible, or with the ban list taking it out, you know, you might see prices dropping. But I'm really enjoying this multiple engine splash because it's also really nice to see how different decks get different boosts and what deck building you can actually put in to optimize your deck with these engines. So let me know down in the comments what you think. Do you enjoy this? Do you not? Do you think that we should go back to more of an archetypal deck list? Things like pure archetypes or multiple engines being splashed together rather than these generic engines like that can go in every deck? More which ones should fuse together better? Honestly, I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments and make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks everyone. See you next time.